Thank you. Thank you. I'm gonna get in the corner.
Good to see you. I've been very good. And yourself?
Good. Colonel, while we have you here, can you talk about your new patrol cars?
Which ones? Please.
The ones that fly.
Yeah. And how many, Woody?
You all right?
You can grab the red down.
Yeah, car too. Yeah, both things.
And more large deployments. Just not large like we've done in the past.
The troops are ready for West.
I'm sorry?
They're probably ready for West.
Yeah, I mean, there's always somebody going to do something. So there's always people, if they just want to jump on something to go do something, there's always the opportunity. But we're not moving like we used to.
I don't know how long we can hold our breath. Oh, is it?
Well, my daughter's got out for 14 years.
She won't want to come to the guard?
Well, she's in Tennessee. She wants to get married and have babies.
Yeah.
She can still do that in the guard.
I think she may consider
Is she a
it.
Apache pilot?
Yeah, Apache pilot.
I've left her
Halo
number in
instructor.
Texas.
Gung ho. I'd love to Redmond, Texas too. But,
Man.
I'd love her to come work for me. Joey and the rest of the team.
That would be great. Getting somebody that has all this credentials up front instead of having to grow them.
Yeah, or I guess over 1,200 hours in combat. You kind of run up the school.
Geared up,
You
they're growing
know,
stuff.
I haven't seen you on TV.
you can't do
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
It depends on when you graduate.
Because I always have bosses that do
Age
that.
wise.
Right.
You make a cameo.
Whatever windows
Every once in a while, I guess.
Exactly,
Yeah.
yeah. So otherwise you don't get that opportunity to do it.
Man, yeah, she'd probably, I would give it, she has like some kids and then 24 months or something like that. So hopefully she starts missing it.
Yeah, I think she will.
We have a place for her. She wants to come to the bar.
Well, thank you. I think she'd like to be back to Texas.
I know the Tennessee tag pretty well too.
There's a nice Oregon down in South.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
With the
Yes, sir.
flood that happened down there.
Thank you. Yeah, we got people embedded down there, a lot of boats, so we can respond quickly.
Just crazy how
Maybe just
those neighborhoods all just went under
maybe
that fast.
Kentucky.
We can mobilize fast. We've got a lot of assets down there to do so it's good.
Texas,
Are you
Mississippi,
use any airboats down there?
Mostly airboats, yeah. Yeah, in that type of environment, yes, sir. Yeah.
I think the pictures that I saw were all kind of like the flat bottom bass boat,
Yes,
type
yeah.
setup.
So shallow water drafting.
Well, if she's ever in Texas. Just
Those are
visiting,
great
we
pictures.
might
Thanks for
be-
posting.
You bet, no problem. Yeah, those guys did a great job, thank you.
She'd love to do that.
It's on that little
Not many middle officers or.
Thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
I'm good.
Good.
So can't they decide?
Fighting allergies.
Oh, yeah? Some degree or another. It's one thing good about her, is they fix things up a
It's
little
like
bit.
it's just
Yeah.
a little.
Takes me a while to catch up.
While they can still be mobile and all that, you know.
You will feel.
They bounce. No place is perfect, but we've been and out of all the ones we looked at, that was one of the more most comfortable with. Yeah, it's a great location. They don't just miss a lot of the residents just got putting on a full play of grease. And we were busy dealing with a lot of other stuff, so we weren't able to see it. There was
There's no controls on it. All the controls are on the menu. Tires and
I'll never put enough because I know it's my shit
General, how's your deployment so far?
Very well.
You please?
Oh, of course. Our soldiers and airmen always do a good job.
Are we deployed 1,000 or are we still?
Not currently. The request isn't start moving until the end of July.
Kind of like an ebb and flow? Well, we do have boots on the ground already. Right?
Oh, yes.
Part of the ramp up.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, a lot of people, I remember when Governor Perry first did his, a lot of people, stuck on that 1,000. It was like, no, it's a slow
Build up.
How y'all doing? Well, thank y'all for being with us here today. I'll give you an advance warning. I'm going to have a whole lot of information for you. We are gathered today for two purposes. One, which will be the lengthy discussion, and that is to talk about the state of Texas becoming prepared to deal with the tropical disturbance that could evolve into a hurricane over the coming days. Before I do that, however, I want to make another announcement. On June 27th, I made a state disaster declaration for Cameron, Hidalgo, and Willacy counties in response to severe weather and flooding that affected those communities. That disaster caused severe and widespread damage, leaving many without the resources they need to be able to recover from those storms. More than 2,500 homes were affected. More than 1,000 of those homes received major damage or were destroyed. So today I am requesting and have signed a request for a presidential disaster declaration asking the federal government to provide individual assistance to those in the Rio Grande Valley affected by this disaster. Now, with regard to the current weather conditions, there are several maps that were, I think, prepared by the National Weather Service. These are two of them, showing different trajectories of the storm that is in the Gulf right now. As everybody knows, predicting precisely where a storm in the Gulf is headed is a very imprecise task. It is impossible right now to know exactly how severe this storm will become and exactly where it will go. The high probability models show a couple of things. One, it's not certain, but it may be more likely than not that in the coming days, the storm could evolve into a hurricane. Right now, if it does so, it doesn't seem like the hurricane would be a high level, probably a Category 1, but again, this is impossible to tell. Second, although it is impossible to tell the exact trajectory of the storm, if you look at the high-level probabilities, it looks like at a minimum that large swaths of East Texas, ranging from the Houston area over to the border with Louisiana, and then widening out further as you go north. In fact, the screen behind you all shows the path. If you look in that screen, if you see the letters on the white part where it says 7 a.m. Saturday and there's an H there, that's where the prognostication is that it could turn into a hurricane at that particular point, at that particular location. And then you can see in the dotted area on the state of Texas, the swaths of that could hit rain. I said east of Houston. Obviously, that map shows that it could be south and west of the Houston area also. But again, we're looking at probabilities. With probabilities, with best guesses right now, regions north of the Houston area, going up into East Texas, could receive as much as, if not more than, 10 inches of rain. Right now, what we are looking at in Texas from the highest level of probability is going to be a very meaningful rain event, and hence a potential flooding event for various locations. So with that in mind, we want to make sure that the state of Texas is doing all we can to prepare in advance for this storm. And here is a surface level discussion of what we've done. We have elevated the State Emergency Response Center to make sure that we will have all tools and resources and personnel needed to help both the state of Texas as well as all local governments as well as individuals in all the potentially affected regions be prepared to respond to the storm, to maintain safety, and to protect property. We have activated the Texas Task Force 1, and they are on standby, and they are prepared right now with 4 high water rescue boat squads and 2 high-profile vehicles. The Texas A&M Forest Service has 3 incident management teams that are activated to help communities respond, which include 3 SAW squads and 3 planning teams. The Texas Department of Public Safety has almost 700 DPS officers on standby to be deployed when and where needed. 5 aircraft, multiple high-profile vehicles. The Texas Military Department has 2 ground search and rescue platoons, which includes, for each of them, 10 high-profile vehicles. That means a total of 20 high-profile vehicles, as well as 50 personnel prepared at this time, and including aircraft, including rescue aircraft as needed. Texas Parks and Wildlife Department has 4 search and rescue boats, and as well as level 3 strike team prepared, which includes almost 30 personnel, about 24 trucks, and 12 combination boats and airboats. The Texas Department of Transportation has 160 personnel ready to deploy. One thing that they were very effective at in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey and prepared to do again also now is to assist with debris removal crews. They will have messaging signs known as dynamic messaging signs, obviously prepared for things like road barriers. I do want to give you all a couple of websites over the course of my remarks today for you to begin to push out for people to know about. For roads, for road updates, for road closures, things like that, this website is very important. Is drivetexas.org. That's drivetexas.org. We're also addressing this through a Health and Human Services approach. The Health and Human Services Commission has water and ice management contracts in place to support shelter and guests of shelter, as well as disaster survivors as needed. I want to remind everybody about the importance of the number 211 and lighting assistance. who got shut out here? Is it?
Yeah, someone's leaning on it. I think we got that.
There we go. All right, remember the number 211. Anybody who has any type of either health-related issue or any type of potential interaction with Texas Health and Human Services Commission should call 211 for updates. We have the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality. They are already monitoring for potential environmental concerns, and they are getting in place all the needed equipment and procedures to make sure that we will be able to monitor and respond to any environmental concerns. On let me find this. On TDI, Texas Department of Insurance, they are prepared in several regards, but one thing I want to try to make a point about that's very important right now, and that is even in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, there is less than 20% of housing units in coastal and adjacent counties that are covered by the National Flood Insurance Program. One lesson learned in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey is the importance of getting flood insurance. Now, there is a 30-day waiting period in order to get that flood insurance, and so for this particular storm, it would not be effective. But as we all know, there could be additional storms that could arise over the course of the summer into the fall. I would strongly urge people to do all they can to at least look into and do all you can to try to obtain flood insurance to protect you against the catastrophes like what occurred in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey. Let's see, the State Department of State Health Services has done several things. They've raised the system of awareness. They're working with medical shelters, getting medical shelters lined up in the event that they are needed, as well as ambulance strike teams, mobile medical units. And for health services, they also have a website that people can go to for information. It's called txready.org. That's txready.org. And then last few couple of things. One is this is a kind of early warning way of reminding everybody who lives anywhere on or near coastal regions in the state of Texas. Be prepared for this particular storm. This is the time to start getting prepared. We don't know how severe this is going to be. We don't know where all it will impact. What we do know is this, and that is if you prepare for the very worst, you will be in a situation where you will be able to come out far better in the end. And so begin preparing your property, begin preparing your supplies, begin preparing your lines of communication to your family members, begin preparing to know exactly where it is that you will be going to in the event that you have to evacuate. And along those lines, obviously, establish a line of communication so that you will know what, if any, type of evacuation warnings will be issued by local governments. One last thing I will add, and that is a lesson learned in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey, and that is for local governments, now is the time to start working on getting those debris contracts established, the shelter contracts established, the recovery process contracts established. If there's a heavy flooding event, a heavy wind event, a catastrophic storm event, There's so much going on. It's almost impossible to be lining up those contracts and crews at that particular time, especially when you see a storm like this that will cover several states. Louisiana, obviously, as well as some other potential states. There will be heavy demand for these contractors. You want to be first in line with the contracts for debris removal, for recovery. So I urge all local governments to get ahead of the curve, to make sure that you line up those contracts so that you and your constituents will be the first ones receiving the recovery supplies that are very much needed. With that, we'll take a few questions.
Governor, you've criticized Austin's homeless policy, and you've said that all state options are on the table in terms of dealing with that. When are you planning to act on this, and how?
Well, we're doing several things already, and we've been doing things all along. One thing that we are doing right now is we are monitoring primarily health and safety-based issues. There have been stories in some other states, and there actually have been some stories locally about activities that could cause health concerns. And we want to make sure that local governments, as well as the state of Texas, is doing everything we can to minimize, to diminish, to eliminate any type of health or safety activity. Then, secondly, it's important for everyone to understand there are so many options that are available that are far superior to people camping out on Congress Avenue. Probably the best template for this is a strategy that's been developed in San Antonio that I urge all communities to take a look at as the possible best practice. It's called Haven for Hope. Because what it does is it does not ignore the homeless. It helps the homeless be placed on a pathway toward a recovery and improvement in their lives. It helps people get off the streets. It gives them a place to stay. It provides them training and assistance toward getting a job, as well as provides them assistance in getting the medication that many of them need in order to balance their lives. And then on top of that, there is the importance of establishing shelters in various locations. Bottom line is that almost any strategy is superior to allowing people to camp out on places like Congress Avenue.
Would you call a special session to address this issue?
People need to understand special session is not a magic wand that solves all problems.
Governor Abbott, how much of the legislative action in response to Hurricane Harvey is actually in place now for this storm?
Well, there's several things after Hurricane Harvey that are in place. One of the best things is the study that was produced by Chancellor Sharp in the Rebuild Texas plan, and there were, I started to say dozens, really hundreds of strategies embedded in that that have already been incorporated, some of which I've articulated today. But then on top of that, there are many things that have been done in the aftermath of Hurricane Harvey that will make the greater Houston area in particular, but also this entire potentially affected region by this looming storm, be better prepared to weather this storm, such as dredging that has taken place in countless river and other water basins, such as improved drainage, as well as repairs to other facilities. By one story that I saw, there are more than 100 projects underway as we speak right now. And so there's a lot of activity going on to make areas that were harmed by Hurricane Harvey far more resilient, far better prepared to weather a storm like this, knowing this one key factor, and that is you can't rebuild an entire region overnight. It takes a while to rebuild. The good news is already the state of Texas and the local communities have received billions of dollars for the rebuilding process, as well as for dredging and clearing out debris in ways that will remove water faster, including the buyout of homes that have been the subject of repeat flooding. So we are far better situated today than we've ever been to weather a storm like this.
And the pot of money that came from the rainy day fund and with the statewide flood plan, is that going to be accessible if any damage comes from this storm?
Well, that gets very complicated for this reason, and that is, for example, a component of the large part of that money provides matching funds for the drawdown grants for what are called community development block grant funds, as well as hazard mitigation funds, things like that, that allow local communities not to have to pay a single penny for billions of dollars of projects. The way all this works, though, is that is funding that's dedicated for the recovery of Hurricane Harvey and has to be spent on that process. And having another storm overlaid on top of that makes that a little bit more complicated. But so bottom line, that money in some respects will not go to deal with any of the aftermath of this storm, but because of what it will be doing to assist in making all those areas affected by Hurricane Harvey, which overlap with what this storm will be, it will be beneficial to those communities to be able to rebuild in both the short term and long term.
Hey, Governor, have you started identifying possible shelter locations in case this gets?
Yes, this is one of the lessons learned from Hurricane Harvey that's already been implemented, and that is that we work on pre-identifying shelters, but understand this, and that is the kind of the lead responsibility with regard to shelters will be local communities, but the state works with them to assist that. Understand this also, and that is, I mean, there's 2 or 3 layers of shelters. Typically on the front line, on the very coastal region itself, is not where a shelter would be. You would look to move more inland for where the first layer of shelter would be, and then further inland as the case may be needed. Go back in time, if you would, to Hurricane Harvey. We had shelters here in Austin, in San Antonio, in Dallas, and places like that. And so, sure, we have places identified in large urban areas that we can move people to, but also places identified closer to the coastal region that could provide a more immediate, closer shelter for immediate evacuation needs.
Governor, is that pretty much when we talk about the package of bills that move through the legislature, what's really going to affect with this storm and anything else that happens in the near future is reaction? And are you confident that the reaction mechanisms and streamlining will be better than what we had during the Harvey period?
I am confident that we are better prepared than we have ever been for any type of storm. I'm equally confident that you're never 100% prepared for everything that may happen. And there's always something new, always something different. But because, candidly, we have experience at doing this, we are going to be able to employ that experience to move with speed and effectiveness to make sure we address the needs of our fellow Texans.
Is that the key this time, is the speed? Because in Harvey case in point, we had people who were sheltered in place, we had nursing homes, and then all of a sudden things completely changed where it has never flooded before, and all of a sudden nursing homes were inundated. We had these massive rescues going on. So is that what we're talking about? We're prepared to react to that? In
part. I mean, part of the need for speed is the advanced planning, and that's one thing that we're urging people to do today, if they haven't already begun doing it. We need local communities as well as individuals who could be affected by the storm to begin planning and taking action today to get ready for what could be a storm or may not be a storm. If you spend a few hours today and the next day getting ready for the storm and it doesn't hit, well, you're going to have a whole lot more extra time this weekend to spend on some fun things. But also you will be better prepared in case another storm does arise later on this year. But I will tell you this, if you do no planning or work today or tomorrow or the next day, getting ready for this, it will come upon you very quickly, potentially, and it'll make it a whole lot more difficult for you. And when I'm talking about you, I'm talking about individuals as well as communities and local leaders. But I think that, having talked to and worked with all these local leaders, both during and after Hurricane Harvey. They know the potential challenges they face. They know both the recommendations and the need to make sure they have contracts in place for debris removal, for local shelters, for food, water, sheltering, and things like that. And I have no doubt that as we speak, those who are in the potential line of the storm are getting ready to meet the needs of their constituents.
One more question. One of the things that targeted was the coordination of private folks coming in and trying to help, and they got turned away, and then they finally got. Is that part of the coordination with? And maybe that's a
Right.
Chief Kim answer.
Sure. Have at it.
So what's the question, Rudy?
The use of private individuals the Cajun Navy that came in and helped. They were during Harvey. People tried to come in and help, and they got turned away. And are we coordinating or doing anything in place for all these private individuals who will come to the rescue when called?
So the short answer is yes, but the spontaneous volunteer is always something that we want to make sure is the right resource at the right place at the right time and has the right training and equipment. So what you're seeing is places like Houston and Harris County that are reaching out to their local partners. You'll see us working with Parks and Wildlife and some private sector resources for airboats and other rescue type capabilities. There's a huge volunteer resource group out there. And our request, and what I need your help in pushing out, is to get those people that may think they want to spontaneously volunteer to go and partner with an existing VOAD or volunteer organization active in disaster. That's the fastest way to get in and help and serve others.
Thanks, guys. We got to run. Really appreciate it.
Hey, is this gonna be a regular thing or?
No. Hopefully, this will be the last one on this. If that turns into an H.